In this session, we will have a case study on this file service architecture. So we are taking Sun Network file system as the example for this case study. And the Sun Network file system, it follows an abstract model what we have defined in the file service architecture. And its implementation is based on this NFS protocol. NFS protocols is actually a set of remote procedure calls that helps a client to perform operations on a remote file store. NFS protocols is actually operating system independent. Anyway, it was originally developed for use in networks of Unix systems. So we are discussing here the Unix implementation of NFS protocol. Let us go through the architecture in detail. So typical system contains client computers and server computers. So inside the server computer, we have a NFS server module as part of this network file system. And like that, inside the client computer, we have an NFS client module. So this NFS server module will be there in the kernel of every computer that acts as an NFS server. So whenever there is a request from the client computer accessing for a remote file system, the client module in that machine will convert that request into a set of NFS protocol operations and then pass to the corresponding NFS server module in the system in which the corresponding file resides. This is how it actually communicates. So this NFS protocols can support either UDP or TCP. So any one of it can be used for communication. I can see a virtual file system in both client machine and server machine, virtual file system. So NFS provides access transparency, that is user program can access a file or we can issue a file operation to a local or remote files without distinction. So other distributed file systems also may be present that support Unix system calls, and all those file systems are integrated using this virtual file system. And this virtual file system or VFS module in short will do one thing, that it will keep track of the file systems that are currently available both locally and remotely, and it passes each request to the appropriate local file system module. So either that file system will be there in the NFS client module or the service module of some other server file system. We can see how this file identifiers are assigned in the case of NFS. So file identifiers used in NFS are called file handlers. So a file handle is not used by the client but the server. So this file handle contains all the information required for the server to distinguish an individual file. And this file handle is created by three different information: file system identifier, inode number, and inode generation number. So inode in Unix is used to store the metadata for a particular file, like all the information regarding that file, type of the file, size of the file, and where the different data blocks of that files are located. So each file contains an inode which contains the metadata for that file, and each inode will have a unique number that is called inode number. So this inode number of a Unix file is used to identify and locate the file within the file system. So that together with two extra information, that is inode generation number and file system identifiers, are used for creating the file ID in case of NFS. Now the file system identifier, that is a unique number which is allocated to each file system when it is created. Third component is inode generation number. So in case of Unix, inode generation number is needed because in the conventional Unix file system, inode numbers are reused after a file is removed. So in the VFS extension to this Unix file system, a generation number is stored with each file and is incremented each time the inode number is reused. Just for example, in case of Unix create system call, that inode number will be incremented. And all these three information together creates the file handle or the file ID in the case of virtual file system. And the NFS client module cooperates with the virtual file system in each client machine. So it operates in a similar manner to the conventional Unix file system. It transfers all the blocks of files to and from the server and caching the blocks in the local memory whenever possible. So it usually uses the same buffer cache that is used by the local input-output file system for this remote file access also. But since the several clients in different host machines may simultaneously access the same remote file, definitely some cache consistency problems will be there in case of a network file system. Now we can see how the access control and authentication is done in case of NFS. So unlike the conventional Unix file system, NFS is stateless and does not keep files open on behalf of its clients. So the server must check the user's identity against the file access permission attributes refreshed for each request to see whether the request is permitted to access the file in the manner requested. So there is a security loophole in access control mechanism here. That is, the NFS server just provides a conventional RPC interface at a well-known port for each host, and any process can behave as a client, sending requests to the server to access or update a file. So the problem here is that client can modify the RPC calls to include the user ID of any other user, impersonating the user without their knowledge or permission. So this security loophole is recently closed using Kerberos. Kerberos are integrated with the NFS to provide a stronger and more comprehensive solution to the problem of user authentication and security. So now let us see how a mounting, that is a mounting of a remote file system, is supported in a client. Usually in Unix, a local file system can be mounted using a mount command, right? So how the remote file system can be mounted? So that is called mount service. So for supporting this mounting of this remote file system, a separate process called mount service process will be there in every NFS server. So on each server there is a file with well-known name, that is /etc/exports. That's a file which contains the names of local file system within that server. And also an access list is associated with each file system name, indicating which hosts are permitted to mount the file system. So which client machines are permitted to mount this file system. That also will be maintained within every server. So using this information, mounting of a file system will be allowed in a remote client. So client uses a modified version of the Unix mount command to request mounting of a remote file system. Mount command is used with 3 different arguments. First one is the remote host name, then path name of a directory in the remote file system, and the third one is the local name with which this file system is to be mounted in the client. The remote directory can be any subtree of the required remote file system. So thereby the client can mount any part of the remote file system also. So this modified mount command communicate with the mount service process on the remote host using a mount protocol. So a mount protocol is actually an RPC protocol and includes an operation that takes a directory path name and returns the file handle of the specified directory if the client has access permission for the relevant file system. The location of the server and the file handle for the remote directory are passed on to the VFS layer and the NFS client. And the server, each server maintains a table of clients who have mounted file systems at that server. And remote file systems may be either hard mounted or soft mounted in a client computer. So now let us see the difference between this hard mounted and a soft mounted file system. So in case of a hard mounted file system, when a user process access a file in a file system that is hard mounted, the process will be suspended until the request can be completed. And suppose if the remote host is unavailable for any reason, the NFS client module continues to retry the request until it is satisfied. So in the case of a server failure and all, user level processes are suspended until the server restarts, and then they continue just as though there had been no failure. Whereas if the file system is soft mounted, the NFS client module returns a failure indication to the user process after a small number of retries. It won't wait until the server restores. So in the normal case, a properly constructed program will detect the failure and take appropriate recovery or some reporting actions. But in most of the cases, Unix utilities and applications don't test for the failure of file access operations. So there is a chance that there can be some unpredictable ways or unpredictable behavior in case of failure of a soft-mounted file system. So many installations use hard mounting exclusively. So this figure shows an example for mounting remote file stores. So you can see server 1, client and server 2, they both all the three having their own file systems, and the node label people in server 1, which is mounted over the node label students in the client's local file store. Like that, the node label users in server 2 is mounted over the node staff in client's local store. So the meaning is that the programs running at client can access files at server 1 and server 2 just using the path names like just for example, if you want to access John in server 1, the client can access that remote file using the path name /user/student John. Like that, if the client want to access the file named Anne, it can access /user/staff/Anne. So next is about caching in NFS implementation. So to achieve good performance, caching is done in both client and server side in NFS implementation. So in a conventional Unix system, file pages, directories, file attributes that have been read from disk are usually retained in main memory buffer cache until the buffer space is required for other pages. So if a process then issues a read or a write request for a page that is already in the cache, it can be satisfied without another disk access. And to guard against loss of data in a system crash, Unix incorporation flushes altered pages to disk every 30 seconds. So these caching techniques work in a conventional Unix environment because all read and write requests issued by user processes pass through a single cache that is implemented in the Unix kernel space itself. So coming to an NFS server, things are a little more complicated. So we can see how it is actually implemented. So NFS servers use the cache at the server machine just as it is used for other file accesses. So the use of server cache to hold recently read disk blocks does not raise any consistency problem, right? Reading operation is okay. But when a server performs a write operation, extra measures are needed to ensure that clients can be confident that the results are consistent. So in version 3 of NFS protocol, the write operation offers two different options. So we can see both of them. First one is write through. Altered pages are written to disk as soon as they are received at the server. So before issuing a reply to the client, the corresponding data will be written back to the disk also. So this is called a write through cache. Second one is delayed commit. So data in write operations is stored only in the memory cache. In this case, it will be returned to disk when a commit operation is received for the relevant file. The client can be sure that the data is persistently stored only when a reply to commit operation for the relevant file has been received. So standard NFS clients use this mode of operation, issuing a commit whenever a file that was opened for writing is closed. Next, how the client caching is done. So NFS client module caches the results of read, write, get attribute, lookup, read directory operations, etc. in order to reduce the number of requests transmitted to servers. So client caching introduces the potential for different versions of files or portions of file to exist in different client nodes, because writes by a client don't result in the immediate updating of cached copies of the same file in other clients, right? So instead, the clients are responsible for polling the server to check the currency of the cached data that they hold. So a timestamp based method is used to validate cached block before they are actually used. So each data or metadata item in the cache is tagged with two timestamps. The timestamps are TC and TM. TC is the time when the cache entry was last validated. Like the TM is the time when the block was last modified at the server. So a cache entry is valid if at any time t, if t minus tc is less than a freshness time interval t, or if the value for tm recorded at the client matches the value of tm at the server. That means the data has not been modified at the server since the cache entry was made. So formally we can represent it as t minus tc less than a freshness interval t, or modified time marked in the client is the same as modified time marked in the server. So this is all about NFS file system. Thank you.